Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The world will continuously tell you that there are separations and differences. There are separations between nations. There are separations between races. There are separations between religions. The world will continuously say that there are all of these differences. However, in reality, God created all of humanity. Now, reality has different definitions depending on who you speak to, depending on who you encounter. But the reality that I am speaking about now in Arabic is called Haq. It's called God's reality. It's a name of God. So what is real for God as opposed to what is real for man? And for God, all of his creation was made by him. It wasn't as if he made part of humanity and didn't make other parts of humanity. He also sent 124,000 prophets into the world. And it wasn't as if some told the truth and some didn't tell the truth. All of the prophets that God sent in the world told the truth and directed man as to how to act. So the world sees things as separated. The world sees things in small boxes like the Zoom screen, and every one of them they consider something different, when in truth, we are all one creation. We may appear separate, but that separation is something that needs to be overcome in our existence. So when the question comes of what religion should we be involved with, what religion should we take on, the answer is one that teaches about the truth. And there are many that teach about the truth, but there are some rather strong points that we have to understand. God is formless, and God is one. And God sent to this world his prophets in order to instruct man how to be and how to live. So what we need to do is we need to find a right religion, but a religion alone is not going to answer our questions. We have to find a teacher who can answer our questions. We have to find a sheikh or a guru who can answer our questions, who can take us to a true understanding of the religion. What does it matter what religion you choose if you don't have any idea what it means? What does it matter what religion you proclaim as yours if you have no idea where it's supposed to take you and how it's supposed to take you? So the most important thing that you need to do is to find a mentor, is to find somebody who can pull you through all of the difficulties of this world, all of the different scenarios that we go through, all of the frustrations that we have in trying to figure things out, we need to have a mentor who loves us because he is not self-motivated. He's not in it for his own grandeur. He's in it for your progress in the way that Allah is constantly giving. You need to find a teacher who is giving as opposed to taking. Each of us has an innate central core that is connected to our Lord, connected to reality. Now, a sandalwood tree, for instance, has a very refreshing, beautiful aroma. And when a sandalwood tree is near other trees and they grow a little bit into each other, they intermingle, the other trees take on the fragrance of the sandalwood tree. Well, this innate nature that we have inside of us is surrounded by the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. We have a body that's made up of the elements, but within that body that's made up of the elements, we have a central core that is non-elemental. And much of life is a struggle between that which is elemental and that which is non-elemental. So we need internally to have that non-elemental part of us influence the elemental part of us. So the elemental part, which is connected to the world, which is connected to all of the difficulties and illusion in the world, isn't what has the greatest influence on us. That portion of us that is innate from our Creator, that is connected from our Creator, has to be the driving force within our being, has to be the driving force within who we are, has to be the driving force as to our actions, has to be the driving force as to how we integrate with the rest of the world. And to understand that, we have to understand a little bit about our Lord, because it's through understanding our Lord that we can begin to know who we are in truth and who our Lord is in truth. Our Lord is not benefited by our praise of him. Our Lord is not benefited by our obedience to him, just as there is no detraction from him by our disobedience from him. He is whole and alone and perfect without us. What we, each of us, needs to understand is all of these things that we do to become closer to our Lord, to become integrated with our Lord, is of benefit to us, is for our benefit. All of these actions that we're supposed to take in this world, all of the ways that we're supposed to act, is of benefit to us, not of benefit to our Lord. There was a wealthy man who was constantly in his office, and every day they would bring him his lunch in his office, and it was always some kind of spectacular food. But his office was located in an area where there were a lot of poor people, and he ignored them as much as he possibly could. As a matter of fact, he had a disdain for everybody around him, and he used to quickly go out of his office, get into a car, and be driven away. One day in his office, as he's leaving, he found an old sandwich that had been left behind from a previous meal, and it must have been a few days old. So he picked it up and put it in his pocket because he didn't want it to smell up his office. And he walked outside to his car. On the way to the car, there was a beggar there. So he grabbed the sandwich out of his pocket and he said, "Here, this is for you. You can have something to eat." Time went on, and he was at a banquet with a lot of the people that he knew and he did business with. And at the banquet, there was all of this magnificent food, and it was being handed out to everyone. And the service was white glove, and the food was of the highest quality. And when it came time for him to be served, they gave him an old, cold, almost moldy sandwich. And he said, "How come at this banquet, everybody gets fed like they were kings, and I get this moldy sandwich?" And the response to him was, "This isn't a banquet. This is the afterlife. And what you're getting here is what you gave in your previous life." We need, no matter what religion we take on, no matter what form of practice we take on, we need to learn to act godly in our encounters with other people. We need to learn to give. We need to learn to be generous. We need to be able to not only pray in the way the religion tells us to pray, we need to act in the way the religion tells us to act. We need to act towards our fellow man and learn how to give towards our fellow man. We need to learn to be generous. We need to understand charity, and we need to understand that everybody in this world is in need, and we should be trying to do some things to help these people in need. So while we walk through the world, we have to be conscious of the world and what's going on, but we also have to be conscious of God simultaneously. And there's a balance between the two, and we have to be aware of that. And we also have to constantly have God in our consciousness, and we can't lose that. There was a young boy who wanted to know what happiness was. And his father told him that over the mountains in the desert, there was tales of a wise man who could answer his questions. So the boy began a trek to find out where to find the wise man and get the answer to his question of what is happiness. And after many, many days of journeying, he came upon a castle, and he walked into the castle, and it was full of people coming and going and coming and going. And he saw the wise man there, and the wise man was talking to everybody. And he had to wait almost 2 hours to get his opportunity to talk to the wise man. And the wise man said to him, "I can't really talk to you at length now, even though I understand your question and your dilemma. But what I'd like you to do is go take a tour of the castle, take a look at everything, see what's here, and then come back and report on it to me. But I also want you to take this spoon, and in this spoon, I've put 2 drops of oil, and don't drop the oil." So the boy walked around the castle and kept consciously being aware of the spoon and the 2 drops of oil in it. 2 hours later, he came back, and the wise man invited him to talk to him. And he said, "Well, what did you see?" He said, "I really didn't see anything. My entire attention was on trying to keep the oil in this spoon." And he said, "Well, I want you to go out again. This time, still keep the oil in the spoon, but take a look and see everything that's here and come back and report to me. So he went out again and he saw these beautiful paintings and he saw these beautiful gardens and he saw these beautiful tapestries and he saw how tasteful everything was done. And he came back in 2 hours and reported to the wise man. And he said, I saw this and I saw that. I saw everything. And he described everything in detail that he had seen this time. And then the wise man said to him, let's see your spoon. And he looked at the spoon and the oil had fallen out of the spoon because he had been so busy looking at everything else. And the wise man said to him, well, I think the answer to your question of how can you find happiness is to be able to see the world and at the same time hold on to the oil in your spoon. And it's like that. We live in the world and we interact in the world, but at the same time, we can't lose our God consciousness. We can't lose our connection to that reality. What happens is, if we pay too much attention to this world becomes our reality. And if this world becomes our reality, then it doesn't matter what religion you're in. It doesn't matter what religion you proclaim. You've lost your connection to truth. You've lost your connection to God. But if you can keep that connection to God, then you can travel through this world and do the work that you're assigned in this phase of your existence. God has many different names. In Tamil, God is Andavan. In Arabic, God is Allah. In English, God is God. In Hebrew, God is Eloheinu. In many different languages, God has a different name. In French, I think it's Adieu. But we need to understand that a rose by any other name is still a rose. God is still God. And we have to understand that God is God. Bawa said that true Islam believes that there is a unity amongst all men, a unity amongst all religions, a unity amongst all faiths. And for us to transcend differences, to transcend duality, to transcend separations, we have to be able to go in the way that we believe and yet allow everybody else to go in the way that they believe. There can't be any compulsion in religion. So we have to find our own way and go that way, but not try to force anybody else in any way. And then we also have to understand the basic rules that exist in this world. There's a reciprocity for everything that we do. So we need to understand that what we're doing is not for God's benefit. It's for our benefit. It's for our benefit to become God-like. God created us to know him. He is already perfection. So we are the ones who need to move towards perfection. We have to transcend this illusory world and all of the illusory needs that we have in this world to go towards perfection. We need to go from illusion to reality. Anil Haq means I am reality. For most of us, we are illusion. So we have to make this jump from illusion to reality. We have to make this jump from living within the arts of this world, the sexual pleasures of this world, the lusts of this world, towards that which is true satisfaction. Allah is mercy. It's his name. Allah is compassion. It's his name. Allah is justice. It's his name. Allah is peace. It's his name. So God has so many names. And one of the interesting things that we need to be aware of is he has allowed man to share in those names. So as God is compassion, he allows us to be compassion. He allows us to be merciful. He allows us to be just. He allows us to be peaceful. Now, if we truly understand what this means, is that God has made it possible for man to share in his qualities. And what could be a greater treasure than to share with God in his qualities? What can be worth more to us than to share with God in his qualities, so that we can become closer to him, so that we can understand reality, so that we can go from the world of illusion to the world of reality, so that we can go from this elemental world to the world of light, which is God's kingdom. What can be greater than that? Now, of course, in order to accomplish that, we have to purify our self. We have to purify our state of being. And this is subtle. This is a very subtle thing to do. For instance, imagine that you're an incredibly obedient person. And then pride comes into your obedience. And you think of yourself, my God, I am so obedient. And that feeling of pride in your obedience needs forgiveness in the same way that the disobedient person needs forgiveness. This is the subtle nature of understanding the truth and understanding our place in the truth. Our obedience is not for his benefit, nor does our disobedience harm him. Our disobedience harms us, and our obedience helps us. We do all of these things on his behalf, but we have to understand the subtle nature of all of this. If we harm another, even if our thoughts harm another, we are in fact harming ourselves. So we have to understand that we cannot use the qualities that are not godlike. We cannot use them for any purpose. We cannot have enemies. We cannot have those we disdain. We cannot have those we dislike. If people are so toxic that it's difficult for us to be around them, then we should break the relationship as opposed to fighting the relationship. We need to leave toxic relationships. We need to relieve relationships which cause in us thought patterns that involve retribution. We need to leave thought patterns that involve resentment. We need to relieve thought patterns that involve anger and hate. We need to be able to do all of these things so that we enter into actions that are godly and thought patterns that are godly. We need to be able to stabilize ourselves in God-like actions and in God-like thought patterns, and create within ourselves a God-like being that is immune to the elemental forces that surround us, which are attracted to illusion. Somehow, this needs to be done. And this is the work that we are doing. And we need to learn to let go of that which isn't real. There was a disciple who was brought before the Sheikh, and he'd been with him for 3 years. And he said, "We're going to have to let you go." And the disciple said, "Why?" And he said, "Because your fidelity is unshakable." And he said, "If my fidelity is unshakable, why do you have to let me go?" And the Sheikh said to him, "We've been watching your fidelity for the last 3 years, and your fidelity to useless knowledge is unshakable. And you can't stay here until you let go of that." So we all have belief systems, and we hold on to them. And one of the things that we have to learn how to do is to let go of the belief systems that the Sheikh tells us are not real. We have to let go of belief systems that make ourselves bigger. Desire should be for merit. Desire shouldn't be for this being. And we need to understand that. Somehow, desire has to be shifted. It has to be shifted towards merit. You know, it's said we shouldn't be in competition with our fellow man. But there is one state that you can be in competition about. You can be in competition to love more. You can be in competition to give more. You can be in competition to transcend more, to become a better being than you are. And somehow we need to understand how to do this and how to move forward. All of this is religion. Now, what I've talked about does not necessarily fall into any specific name of a religion, but all of this is religion. All of this is truth. All of this is a way of being. And you can give a title to it. For instance, consciousness is a state of being. Consciousness also exists in light. So without this form, there also exists consciousness. Imagine the light consciousness that is Jesus, or the light consciousness that is Muhammad, or the light consciousness that is Moses. Now, if someone reaches that level of consciousness, can they say they've reached reality? There are 7 levels of consciousness. The highest is divine luminous wisdom, which means the wisdom that is God-like, and the ability to transfer within this world godlike understanding to mankind. Well, that's what the prophets did. They spread godlike understanding to mankind. But if somebody in normative religion were to come forth and say, I am Jesus, they would turn and run from him. If someone would say, I've reached the consciousness of Muhammad, they would turn and run from him. So we don't say these kinds of things. When Halaj said, Anal Haq, I am reality, he was killed. Man who doesn't understand cannot abide somebody else telling them things that are beyond their comprehension. Man is limited to his own understanding of things, and unfortunately is unable to be open enough to allow other understandings to go on that might seem contrary to what they believe. This is another thing we have to give up. We have to understand that there is consciousness out there that may be higher than ours, that may be more transcendent than ours. And as opposed to resenting it, as opposed to running from it, we should be thankful that we have had the opportunity to encounter it, because anyone who has that kind of consciousness is here to transfer that kind of consciousness to you. If he didn't have that intention, or she didn't have that intention, they wouldn't have or be able to carry that kind of consciousness. It comes with the desire to give. It comes with the desire to assist. It comes with the desire to aid. It comes with the desire to elevate the transcendence of the rest of mankind. My teacher was here to elevate everyone he came into contact with, to bring them to a higher level of understanding, to bring them to a higher level of transcendence. Yet, normative religion rejected him. Why? Because he dealt with Hindus, and he dealt with Muslims, and he dealt with anybody else who came to see him. And religion wants exclusivity, and religion wants to be told that it is the only way. And his way was everyone's way. His way was all inclusive. His way was without separations. So our way has to become inclusive. Our way has to become without separations. Our way is to give and help others attain higher levels of consciousness. Our way is to be an example of what it's like to be in this world, but not of this world. How to be in this world, but to be of God. And how to be in this world, but not to believe in this world, but to be in this world and believe in God. This is the dilemma that we are in. And the only way out of it is to believe in God. All that we do by holding on to this world is get further trapped in illusion and further trapped in the mire of the maze that you can't get out of. So we need to learn to surrender what? To surrender our love for the world, and to change our love to the love for God, to the love of the formless. We have to give up our attachment to form. We have to understand that form for each of us is just a temporary situation that's going to be taken away from all of us. And if we hold on to the form too strongly, and if form is all we know, and if form is all we want, we are going to be stuck in the cycle of reincarnation. And to escape that and to go to the light world, we have to give up form. We have to give up the attachment to form. We have to give up the need to form. We have to give up the love for form. And this is what we have to pray for. God, help us give up this need for form. God, let us separate ourselves to our true self as opposed to our imaginary self. We have to give up the mind and desire's belief system, which is that this world is real. And the mind and desire will constantly reiterate over and over and over, this is real, this is real, this is real. It's not real. And when we know it's not real, we are beginning our transcendence towards that which is real. May each one of us find reality. May each one of us find the truth. May each one of us come to know ourselves and in return come to know our Lord. And may it happen quickly and easily for us in this lifetime. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.